And we are on with Mr. Gary Husband. Well, this is great, man.
Hi,
So
Danny.
hey, man. So currently you're in Germany?
Yes, we're in Grow now. We're playing at a festival here. I've played many times here, but as usual, can't remember a thing about it. But I remember got the T-shirt, so that's
Very
proof.
nice. Which group are you with right now?
John McLaughlin
John
and the
McLaughlin.
Fourth Dimension. Yeah,
Unbelievable, man. Well,
yeah.
you're a legend. I mean, we met once before. My band Marvin. We opened for you guys in Chicago when you were with Allan.
Oh God, which year?
This must have been 2015, 14, something like that.
Oh, 2014.
Yeah.
Oh, so this was the last time around. Yeah, for me.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, with Jimmy Haslip on bass. Yeah,
Right, right.
yeah, man.
And I want to, kind
So
of go
Reggie's, right?
Reggie's. That's right.
Oh man, yeah,
So I want to go
cool.
all the way back with you. So when did you start playing with Alan? That would be like a good place to start with this.
Um, yeah, your speech is a little interrupted. Is
Oh,
is it happening with mine too?
no, I can hear you perfect.
Oh, it's just kind of freezing out sometimes,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
but
So
but
yeah.
but
Yeah. Do you
I
have
got
something
your
to say?
question.
Okay, good.
I got your question. Yeah, about Alan. Yeah, well, actually, a long time ago, real long time ago. I mean, we're talking 1970, 19, 1970. I keep saying eight. I think I may have met him in 1978, and
Wow.
when we started, and we were going certainly in 1979, because the first time we ever played we just jammed. It was just guitar and drums in the studio, and you
You
know,
guys is like,
it's pretty
to
something.
me, the way you two played together, and I was always a big fan of both of you guys' playing, but there was a real kind of rhythmic communication that I don't feel like there was really nothing like it. I really enjoyed like you guys were able to kind of conjure up together, and I was just
Oh,
what was interacting with him like? I mean, like when Alan would bring a tune forth, like what was the process of bringing something to life?
well, um, the interaction was one thing. Um, And I can say really largely it was just felt like the most natural thing in the world to me, you know. And it just happened from the first time we ever played with such ease and such effortless. I mean, it didn't involve thinking about anything, talking about anything. It just happened, and
Yeah.
so that was one thing. So I mean, we had that going for us as a kind of there was definitely a kind of recipe in place there, that was a chemistry in place that worked. So really, the material was always kind of interpretation of what he'd write. He'd bring tunes, and usually he'd just sit there. I mean, we're talking cassette era now, Danny. You know.
Yeah.
So, and he just sometimes I'd take them away, or sometimes he'd just play stuff in front of me. Just with a foot tap and just and in these pieces sometimes there'd be little pushes and pulls in the tempo. And these were all very insightful of him, particularly to me. So he he was definitely of his own personality in that respect. There was something intensely personal about the way he wrote, intensely
Mhm.
personal to him, and very unique. So, and I thought it was just important for the drummer to acknowledge those always, and keep them what they were. I mean, they changed over the years, but it was a real nice way to sort of work, because he really just asked nothing. So he was the most reluctant band leader that you could ever wish to meet, as I'm sure you remember.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, we spent 4 weeks with him in a van in 2012.
oh, you did?
Yeah, so we
Oh,
got to know him very closely for that period of his life. And what struck me,
2012.
one of the things that struck me was how little he would speak about music. It was really not like, it's pretty incredible. Like, he would talk about some things, but he didn't seem like the kind of guy that was just, single tracked mind in the
No,
verbal, like,
no,
descriptions of it.
no,
Yeah.
he was not really too interested in talking about any of it.
Hmm. That
It was
was
just,
his bag.
it was just, time to play, and then it was time to dance, really. And it's kind of a nice metaphor, really, dancing.
Right.
Because it
Right.
was. It was just. I mean, once you find, and I can only speak personally. You find a connection like that. I mean, I'll never find it again, not with anybody. And it's just, I shall cherish it always. So
Yeah.
what can I say?
Yeah. Well, it's really, you guys were lucky in the sense that you managed to capture it, or at least bits of it, for the rest of us to enjoy. So, in a sense, it stays.
Yeah, yeah. Some of it's there. Yeah, there's very little video, actually.
Hmm.
Amazingly, because I'm probably the longest term guy that worked with him. I mean, I go back to the first record, IOU.
Hmm.
So it
Right.
was.
Right.
Um, but there was never any kind of pro sort of video shoots, really, of any sort of edition of the band that I was involved in at any time. So
When
I
you
missed
guys
out.
started
Except,
during like the late 70s, when you guys started playing together, who was playing bass?
oh, we had a few guys. We had lots of auditions because this was big Jaco Pastorius time, and
Right.
he'd not long since made a very big impact, and we couldn't find anybody who didn't play fretless bass. And nobody played fretted bass anymore. And Alan really, for the one thing, Alan really didn't like Jacko sound-alikes,
Hmm.
and nor did I. And um, the pressure was on just to find somebody who wasn't trying to play like Jacko. It was really.
Mm.
So we found a guy. First guy, actually, the first guy we ever played was Hansford Rowe. Do you know the Gong guy
Hmm.
from the band Gong? And also they
Yep.
had a band Gongzilla. Yeah. So our first demos, in fact, were with Hansford, and then we found a bassist from Birmingham in England called Henry Thomas,
Hmm.
and played with him for a while. Um, I can hardly remember. I don't think there's any recorded evidence of it anyway. But and then we found Paul Carmichael, who you know from the IOU
Sure.
record. So
Hmm.
and really it was just he had a way of playing that was just kind of like him as a guy. He didn't freak out when the drums and the guitar were like improvising together furiously or whatever. He just, well, it's here and that's where it is, and here's the one and there's the two, you know. And he'd just go with it.
Which is
He
really,
didn't
I
try
mean,
and fight.
creates a kind of balance when you have two people who are interacting at the level that you guys were.
Yeah, well, particularly from the drums, because he wanted. I guess he really enjoyed the a lot of the kind of furious activity, spontaneous activity of drums,
Hmm.
and the intensity of that. He really liked a lot of like improvisational energy going on all the time,
Sure.
which kind of, because I was coming from the influences I had, and particularly at that time because I was still very much under Tony's wing, Tony Williams, of course,
Hmm.
uh, which is kind of obvious when you hear that record. But um, and yeah, it wasn't obvious for a lot of players that really enjoyed that. Not that they couldn't do it. It's just like they just wanted a drum and bass, sorry, not a drum and bass and drum team
Hmm.
to establish something he could blow over. Well, this concept of what we were doing wasn't like that at all. It's kind of like
Right.
two improvisational kind of frames of reference going on simultaneously, and
And
hopefully,
and that was really the
you know,
vibe of, like, you guys were riding that Coltrane wave that, the band
yeah,
builds dynamically. It wasn't just like blowing over a groove. It was really like getting somewhere as a band.
yeah. We used to catch waves. Yeah,
Yeah,
he
catch
he
waves. I
he,
like
he
that.
he always used he always used that expression too. It was like catching a
Catch
wave.
wave.
And every
That's
now and
beautiful.
again, you catch a big one or a long one, or maybe just a fleeting one.
That's the thing
Well,
about his playing. I think also because the note choices were so unique that the rhythmic side of his phrasing tends to not be talked about. But he's a complete original kind of thinker, especially on guitar, but really as an instrumentalist, as an improviser. The kinds of, subdivisions, the groupings, the kind of ideas you guys were catching, really
well,
not common.
yeah, sure, but I have to say that I think I consider that he had amazing rhythm, Alan.
Hmm.
Actually, I mean his time was really something. Where he put things, and just that little bit ahead, just that little bit behind. It was a kind of unique character of what he had, but he really had terrific time. In
Hmm.
spite of the fact that what he was doing would be so abstract
Hmm.
somehow, if you think of time in its regular form. But the abstraction seemed to make sense inside of the time every time. And if you really look at how he starts one of these, Paganini-esque fleeting solos, whatever, and where he lands, it's always on somewhere, like really on somewhere.
Hmm.
And this is just most revealing.
Well, that's the thing about playing that kind of rubato-ish thing. It has the note has to cascade to some very concrete point for it to sound
Mm,
good, and that's
mm.
that's really what he was so good at, like just aiming a line like and just landing right in.
Oh yeah, yeah, he
Yeah.
did. Yeah,
So
not
let's
not not occasionally. It always was like that.
right,
It
right.
really was.
Well,
Yeah,
let's talk about career stuff. Like you were in the UK, working with Alan. This is late '70s, early '80s.
yeah.
What was the next move for you? The next
Um,
big thing that happened.
Next big thing that happened.
Hmm.
What you mean, career-wise for me or for us?
For you, for you with the band, like you guys started, making albums, traveling, playing
Yeah,
music.
yeah, we did. Yeah, we just um, actually what was ahead of us when we started was a very difficult time just getting accepted in England because this thing was really not of people's tastes at all,
Oh
you
yeah,
know. And we were up against some strong resistance.
really.
Yeah, yeah, we're finding it really difficult to work. Yeah, I mean, we really, I mean, that's why the band was called IOU, because we used to turn up places and find that there were so little people there that we had to pay the PA guy or the front of house guy and pay for some kind of basic backline or something, and literally leave having paid to play. So that's where the
Wow.
IOU comes from. Yeah, these were not good days. And
It's so funny because these legendary
and it,
fusion records that blazed the way for us were paid for with IOUs.
yeah, so yeah, pretty much. I mean, favors and just deals with people and like I say, like just trying to get the band working was just the hardest thing in the world. So
Hmm.
really, it wasn't until I mean, there were a couple of respites in that we went to Paris a couple of times and played actually very close to Notre Dame, the
Mm.
amazing cathedral, in a jazz club there called River Bop Jazz Club, which has been closed for many years. But back then it was like a little basement club in Paris, in the heart of Paris, and we drove there actually in both cars. Paul Carmichael had his car, and I drove Alan. Because I had a station wagon, a state car,
Mm.
so I had the drums and his cabinets and stuff like that. So I mean,
So,
great memories, and they were nice. They were really nice times. That felt like we were of something. It made us
hmm.
feel a little bit better, and we actually got paid, and we stayed there for about a week each time. So, um, and always really the bad news was having to go back to England and just sort of like, what are we gonna do now, man? It's like, and just get on the phone and try and hustle gigs.
I can't
Yeah,
imagine Alan hustling gigs.
yeah. Well, I heard it, and it wasn't impressive. And then there were a few anecdotes. I have to tell you one of the funniest ones. There's an area a trendy area in London called Covent Garden, and in the main square there was a club called the Rock Garden, and they had a lot of like hip young bands like starting out and sort of but all pretty much like pretty
Mhm.
heavy, uh, you know, loud rock bands. And we turned up. We were probably about twice as loud as anybody anyway. But the thing is that we played this. We'd gone in and played the first. We'd started the first tune, and this guy who turned out to be the promoter of the club came running towards us with his hands like waving, going, "Hey, hey, hey, guys," and basically stopped us in the middle of our first tune. He said, "What's the matter with you guys? Do you not know the people are in?" So yeah, this is true.
That's
He
unbelievable.
thought we were just like goofing off and just playing insane bullshit and not playing a tune at all. And he came to tell us that the audience were actually there. That was yeah, some pretty
That's
crazy memories.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
So
So it really wasn't.
when
Uh,
did the US thing start? Like,
well, pretty soon after, actually, because we had the choice of by that point, because you might remember on the early records there were vocals.
mhm.
Well, before we hadn't even recorded our album yet, IOU album, and we'd what have we done? We'd been playing all that material, but Alan was singing and playing guitar on stage back then. Yeah,
Singing? Alan was
yeah.
singing?
Alan was doing the singing. Yeah, I mean
Wow.
he had a kind of real personal voice, but not one that projected very well, but it was a voice that suited. I heard him sing his melody lines often, so I was used to that voice. But it wasn't the kind of like, it wasn't exactly enigmatic about it. It
Mm.
wasn't very engaging, shall we say,
Hmm.
as a vocal. But for all those early gigs, he used to do all the vocals. Yeah, until we
Mm.
got Paul Williams, who was based in Orange County, California, which is where we really made a beeline to in out of desperation, really, because Paul came over to do the record, and can you believe it? We just lost Paul too. Paul
Yeah.
Williams just, and so we did the album, all of us, and then the plan somehow was to go to the States and excuse me, and see what we could pick up, gig wise, and see if we could get any takers for the album, which we'd recorded but couldn't get any interest in whatsoever. No company
Really?
wanted to release it. No, nothing. No. So
Unbelievable.
we were definitely not the popular boys on the block. Let me tell you.
Well, you
So,
guys
but
chose
we
to do
stuck to
something so unique, so like out of left
it.
field, you know?
Well, I was just, going with him. I mean, it was that's what he wanted to do, and since it worked between us, it was everything he brought along. I felt instantly at home with. So, but really, that was the calling card. We'd actually sort of made the commitment to go to America, all of us, the band, and then stayed there and slog it out and see what we could pick up. And we'd start doing little clubs and stuff. And because of his profile there previously with Jean-Luc Ponty,
Mhm.
the UK band, Bruford, what else had he done?
Tony Williams, Lifetime.
Oh, of course, the Tony
Yeah.
Williams Lifetime. Yeah. So I mean, he'd got attention there,
Hmm.
and it just happened that just like the word got out, and it's kind of really hard to consider this now in this day and age with the internet how word gets out in
Sure.
1982, but it did, and we started filling these clubs, and the club owners from region to region would be speaking to each other and saying, hey man, I don't know who this guy is, but my club's full, so you should take this guy,
Hmm.
and that's kind of how it worked, of course. A
That's
lot
so
of us fans.
crazy. I mean, think about like, a guy like Louis Armstrong that just word would get out and people would line up to see him without really ever hearing him before. It's like word of mouth seems to always be the formula.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Yeah,
it's
for
exactly how it happened. Yeah, from state to state to state. So we just got to the stage where we were touring almost constantly, and we'd hired somebody to kind of sequence what we were doing with it as far as the bookings were concerned.
hmm
And we used to drive around in a what was Paul Williams's car? This Cadillac, I guess. Big old early 70s Cadillac. Anyway, that's all I know. Towing a U-Haul with us all in the car and all the gear in the
Wow.
U-Haul, and that
Wow.
that was that was the first couple of years for us doing that.
And how
Road
long were
warriors,
you, right,
you know.
fighting the good fight? And this was just touring the US and living that. Cheers. Man, so, and how long were and you were living in California during that
Yeah,
time? Yeah.
yeah. Orange County, yeah,
Now,
yeah.
as as most of the people listening know, you're a drummer in this band and you're a pianist and keyboardist in John McLaughlin's thing currently, and
Mm,
but you've kind of maintained those two worlds the whole time. Question:
mm.
the strange things that Alan does harmonically, was that ever discussed? Like the amount of time you were spending together, was there ever like a discussion between you about like the mechanics of what he was doing, what to play over what world?
Oh no, no,
No,
no,
that's
no,
incredible.
no, no, not at all. No, it just you know just happened.
Well, I mean,
Well, I mean, part of that was, I mean, you have to understand he's a real special case, I mean, there are not too many band leaders, for Christ's sakes, who are going to, just say, oh man, just do what you want, do what you feel, or go where the music takes you, kind of thing. And but he just wanted what came. He wanted to hear what we do with his music, and that's all he wanted. He didn't specify anything except maybe every now and again he'd just say, it'd just be nice if this just came down in volume a bit, just for that bit, or this bit when it hits, it could be big, and that's it. That was really it. Nothing
Yeah.
else.
I remember one of the funniest moments when we were touring together. They had our saxophonist Danny Markovich, you guys played on a record, one of Dewa's records, uh,
Yes,
together. So they had
yeah,
Danny on to play over a song. I can't remember, Fred or something, and Danny didn't know the chords. And we were all sitting in the car. It was Virgil Donati and Jimmy Haslip and Alan. And Jimmy was teaching Danny the tune, so he's like, saying like, it's like, oh, so this part, it's like an A flat major, and Alan's like, A flat minor, and then and then it goes to like a C7. It's like C major 7, and it's like, fuck, guys, what have we been playing all these years?
yeah,
It was amazing, but it worked because it's like, when it came down to play, time to play, it's like the music was so open, and
yeah,
and he really
yeah,
was an accepting kind of guy. Like, it seems musically, just whatever people were putting out, he'd navigate
yeah,
and really
yeah.
just.
He really was a kind of he was never happier than when he had an inspiring or spirited kind of how would you call it, pad or ground or basis, or something being laid down, with the drums and between the drums and the bass, play over. He'd just play over anything. He
Hmm.
was never happy than just to be left to improvise and play over exactly how he felt,
Yeah.
and pure improviser, absolutely pure. I mean, one of the purest I ever knew, really, and of
Yeah.
course most unique.
Yeah. So how did the
Uh,
affiliation with John McLaughlin and this band that you're currently with form? At what point in your career was that?
oh, this is excuse me. Um, I had the first thing I had the opportunity to do with John was the Industrial Zen album.
Hmm.
I'm not sure if you know that one.
I
Had a
do.
lot of different people on it. Oh, yeah, okay. So I played pretty much all the mainstay keyboards on that record. There were a couple of other keyboard players, lots of different drummers and things. Otmar Ruiz played a couple of solos, I think. But pretty much I did all the keyboards, and I also did two tracks drums,
Hmm.
with another drummer who I'd been working with periodically called Mark Mondesier, and we did the first track for Jacko, and then the Carlos Santana tune for Senor CS,
Hmm.
and that was the double drums. And John wanted a kind of like a panoramic kind of bit of a sort of 3D drum aspect.
Hmm.
He was sort of looking at trying to pursue that. So that was the very beginning, really, for me. And we did one experimental concert because there was still no real idea for a band at that point, and the fourth dimension really hadn't been discussed at all. But following that, we did a concert in La Reunion Island, and this kind of went really nicely.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful concert to play, uh, as usual. All the ones I want to hear weren't recorded. Um, but that went really nicely in a way, and I guess as a result of what was happening there, the seeds of the band um, started building around that concept. So Mark was playing drums, the bassist Adrian Ferrero,
Hmm.
and myself on keyboards. Uh, and that was the four piece. So the
Yeah,
fourth dimension was born then. So we started touring really 2006, 2007 with that band.
it seems like it's like your career path, like with Alan and with John McLaughlin. It's like really two completely different approaches. One's so loose and do whatever you want, and the other one, like the tunes are so much more
Yeah.
arranged, and the rhythm, like there's a lot of these like unison kind of rhythms and very specific ornate compositions.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
yeah, like two totally different kind of streams. So
Yeah. Yeah. We're all Yorkshiremen too. Because
yeah,
I'm from Leeds in West Yorkshire, and Alan was from Bradford, West Yorkshire, about 8 miles from where I'm from. So we were literally born 8 miles apart. And John was born. He didn't stay long in Yorkshire at all as a child, but he was born in Doncaster, near Doncaster, a place called
mm.
can't even remember the name of the place. Little small town.
I was speaking to John Etheridge, and he has a whole theory about you Englishmen and of that generation and the need you guys have for expression, for this like it's some sort of, he says it's some sort of dissonance between the manners you're taught and then like your need to like just get on stage and shout. Just this
Oh,
sort
well,
of like
yeah. Well, yeah, it
there's
would
there's
be.
something
I
very
mean,
unique about like the kind of music that your generation specifically, like your scene of people really brought to the world. There was nothing like it.
well, yeah, I mean, it seems like that now. I mean, I can see it clearer now, but as far as I was concerned, or I'm concerned, we were just doing what came naturally.
Right.
I mean,
But
we were
for
just
people
chasing.
like me, listening to IOU was the gateway backwards into Coltrane and into Miles Davis and into Louis Armstrong. That was the music I heard first. We
Oh,
have
wow. Wow.
our generation consumed music completely backwards because
Yeah,
most of the people that came from rock, Alan was some sort of natural bridge sonically
yeah,
with the distorted kind of guitar sound into a
yeah.
world of different notes, and then get curious and see. You'd listen to your drumming, and then you'd be like, "Oh, there's this guy Tony Williams. I wonder what that's
Mm,
about."
mm. Yeah, well, I I always remember this story because I was playing Gretsch drums almost exclusively by that time. And
Mhm.
one of my kits was yellow too, I have to tell you. And
The drums were yellow.
the, the drums were yellow, but I mean it was a lot of it was about Tony, but I was going to see Elton John, who was another big
Hmm.
hero for me, like on a regular basis. And at that time he was playing um, a yellow Gretsch too. So. Uh, and I think somebody else. Yeah, Alphonse Mouzon.
Hmm.
The album trilogy with Albert Mangelsdorff and Jaco Pastorius. He's playing a
Hmm.
yellow Gretsch drum kit. So the around that time in the 70s, I'd seen a lot of yellow Gretsch, but I'd really fallen in love with them. So, but the problem for Alan was always like I'd kind of done a little regression thing into kind of small jazz kit mode.
Mm.
And I had like really small sizes. So I had like a 20-inch bass drum, really just one up, one down with the toms and snare drum and a couple of cymbals. And I was very minimal. And he was like, man, I love your playing, but you've got to make a sound. And I said, well, I like this sound. And what he hated was like little jazz bass drums that instead of had a real meat to them, weight, sonic, like sub weight to them. He'd be confronted with this little like bing, 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 bing. That was exactly the noise he used to make. He said, I can't stand that shit, man. It's called a bass drum. There's some low end there. And he said, and I said, well, I mean, is it really bugging you? What do you want me to do? And he says, Well, with speaker cabinets, big box, big sound. So so you want me to get a bigger drum kit?
Yeah.
So it's funny, yeah. So I did. So I got like a 22 by 14
It
bass
makes so
drum. I
much
didn't go
sense.
anything.
It makes you feel so naked to stand in front of a 4x12 guitar cabinet and have a bebop kit next to you. It's just
Yeah,
you're just making too much sound. It's frightening.
I can believe you. Yeah, I can. I mean, I can see it, but at the time, no, I'm a small kit guy, and you know what we're like when we're at that age. No, this is what I'm doing, and I'm on my own track here. This is what I'm doing.
Sure.
But no, he was right. And once I got the bigger kit, I was like, oh, and this was the beginning of a romance of a slightly different kind. This is like a big sound all of a sudden.
Hmm.
So, he was very happy about that. But he pressured me. It's funny actually because I was just talking to John the other day, John McLaughlin, and he told me that the instigator that he really pressured Billy Cobham. It's almost like an identical story because Billy was playing like a small kid at the early days of Mahavishnu. If you go back and look on the photographs on the Inner Mounting Flame record, you see Billy playing this tiny kit. I think
Mm.
one up, one down, and an extra floor tom. That's it. And it was John who suggested you gotta why don't you get two bass drums, baby? Come on. Get some toms up there too while you're at it. Like really kind of like enlarge the composition of his kit, and he did. And Billy kind of admitted that to me too, because I worked a lot with Billy Cobham over the years, and and it was John's thing. Yeah, he said, come on, man, I want a big sound here. And
Yeah.
so uh, it was like he introduced Billy Cobham to Billy Cobham, if you like, because I mean that's become synonymous with him. He's still playing that rig today.
Sure. Well, in life,
Double
it's
bass
like
drums.
sometimes you gotta have this external push to become whatever you're going to become.
It was
You
just
know.
interesting to the origins because at the time Billy did not want to know about it at all.
Hmm.
It was
Well,
reluctant.
it makes so much sense though for a drummer listening to Elvin Jones and people that really played with people who played an acoustic instrument. It had to make
Mm,
sense with a smaller sound. So if Billy,
mm.
if a guy like you or Billy played with Coltrane and had a 24-inch bass drum and were just burying them, every time you shook your feet, then it
Oh,
wouldn't have made
yeah.
sense. But like you're playing with like
No.
these people on big stages with big amps, and it's just
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
it's scaling the whole sound up.
Yeah, you need it. And
Yeah.
I mean, Mahavishnu was by all accounts incredibly loud. But I
Yeah.
mean, we also were loud, not as loud as that, but we were. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to Jonathan Kreisberg on this thing you're on right now, and he's a huge, huge, huge fan of you guys. And
He's a great musician.
he's a great, great player. Yeah, and I don't know if he ever showed you, but the first album he made, which was not even released under his name, he made it in college. He has one song that just sounds exactly like an Allan song, which is very funny, and he's
Oh,
kind of playing in a way that's imitating him. But
do you
we
really?
yeah, it's very funny. I'll have to get that track to you. Uh, but we were saying about like there was a side to your guys' music that didn't seem to make it to the live show too much, which was more like the ethereal kind of soft new like this like the live show really was this catching wave thing, like this
Mm,
intensity, right? But in
mm.
the studio, there seemed to have been like another face to the band that was exactly, maybe like your more purist side, like the small kit kind of
Uh,
mentality.
Yeah, you mean on Alan's records? On
Yeah,
his record?
yeah. There was a
Yeah, there
certain
was.
kind of attitude in the studio that I never really saw in the live show.
Mm, mm.
You know.
I tend to think I think by the 90s, or no, certainly in the 80s too, we'd go about these what he'd call zones, and they'd be like improvisational. They kind of had a little bit of structure, and he'd always open them with like swell chords, these kind of
Mhm.
ethereal, with this ethereal kind of sustain to them, and this
When you do
12
all the volume swells and the
volume kind of
chordal
stuff.
kind of things. Yeah.
And he'd do that, and sort of out of that would come, like, with one addition of the band, like keyboards playing a kind of pad for him, improvisation, all of it. And Alan would just play over that, and then I would instigate something. From that point, I kind of take over. God. Anyway, but
Yeah.
these were really otherworldly, and I have
Mm.
lots of memories. I have some recordings too, but I have lots more. So I have just the memory, the essences of them, and they were really something. Sometimes,
Mm.
I had a couple of out of body experiences playing with him.
Yeah.
Really, yeah, no
Would you
kidding.
say? Yeah. This is. I mean, it's so beautiful.
I
Like
hadn't been
to.
drinking.
I mean, it's nice to hear somebody talk that really had you guys really had something not common, some real musical connection. You know.
Thanks for saying so.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's obvious. I think it's obvious to anybody who's a fan and followed the career because it
Mm.
comes off so strong. And there's the realm of things that you could write or kind of artificially come up with, and then there's like the realm of the organic. Like it's like you can't plan for certain things. It's just how two people interact, and a lot of the records are really built around this very organic thing. It's
Yeah,
very
yeah.
uh,
It's really a good word to really explain it. Yeah, it was. It was really so much of it. Yeah,
hmm.
it really was. So, uh,
Yeah, man.
where to go without him? It's really hard, Danny.
Yeah,
Really hard.
yeah. I
But
know.
uh,
Well, at least we have the records. We us those of us who know you and him from that that's something like very beautiful to leave behind.
yeah.
It's like that an artist's role is to make deposits into the world's little treasure chest. You know, and
Mm,
that's
mm.
and that's really what you guys did, and that's what we and we have a richer life thanks to it. So we appreciate you
Oh,
guys.
it's kind of you to see it like that. It's,
Yeah.
um, yeah, it was certainly, when what it really meant to me, he was the first guy that wouldn't, um, I mean, at that time in England, there was lots of work and lots of clubs and lots of sessions and whatever else, but really people were trying to sort of tame me down because I was a bit of a wild boy in those days, in the music. And I think partly because a lot of my influences were, but there was a big pressure in England to sort of try and remain British and have this British thing, and all I was interested in was the Americans. Sorry,
Yeah.
you know. So I would be down, I'd be checking out Art Blakey, Elvin Jones, Billy Higgins, any of the drummers, any of the American drummers, I'd be there all the time.
Mm.
So, and of course, Billy Cobham and Tony, Eric Gravatt with Weather Report, all these guys. And all these guys were hard, passionate hitters. And I love that about drums. And most of the people I was playing with back then were sort of saying, listen, man, it's getting a little intense up here, and it's getting way loud too. And could you just sort of like, try and get some nice Steve Gadd thing to this? And I'd always think that, and as much as I love Steve Gadd, adore Steve Gadd's playing, to try to, you must have had it as the musician you are too, where people are saying, listen, if you could only get just a little bit of a kind of, Porcaro-ish, shuffle thing to that, and I'm going, man, I started playing in a quartet that when we were celebrating the music of John Coltrane, ironically, after you said all those really kind things.
Mm-hmm.
But this music was so rigid, and really only attested to the original recordings of these unbelievable tunes, that Coltrane did. And but the pressure was on me, you gotta get that Elvin triplet, and I'm going, well, can't I just sort of play and try and make it feel good without sounding like I'm trying to copy Elvin Jones? I mean, I'm not going to sound like Elvin Jones, Nobody can sound like Elvin Jones. Only Elvin Jones.
That's the thing. At a certain point, it's just like, let's just play the song the way we play.
And I remember distinctly, having this and having to play, Mr. PC or whatever, and try and get that kind. And then there would be the drums and the saxophone thing, and it was all kind of like, let's get this as close to the record as possible. And I just wasn't interested at all, Danny. And I remember getting so furious one night because I was being attacked because I wasn't really like copying the attitude that he wanted. But in my defense, I was saying, listen, man, if we're playing tribute to somebody like John Coltrane, surely shouldn't this be about invention and about like taking it and exploring new ways, going, like abandon, just go with something, try and find something, catch a wave, there's the phrase again. And they were like, no, this has to be, all Coltrane, all Elvin. I'm going, oh, fuck, And I remember playing the night I left that particular group. I'd gone to see David Liebman, and he was also doing a Coltrane tribute. Maybe it was a Coltrane anniversary of some kind. Not sure. Anyway, he was in town at a club in London, and I went in my break to go and hear him. And this was Coltrane music, but it was almost like it was hinted at. It was, and the way that it was portrayed was totally imaginative. I mean, he had like a harmonica player, he had a guitarist, but with a really unusual style, and a drummer who played like very kind of way of ethnic drums, not at all like furious jazz drumming.
Yeah.
And this was the tribute to John Coltrane. I thought, that's the way to do it.
It was probably Jamie Haddad on drums at that point.
I went back to the club played the second set, and I said, I'm done.
Yeah.
I don't want to do this anymore.
Well, this is the thing. It's like when people get to define your musical situation that don't understand some essential things about the nature of improvisation, they set the floor and the ceiling and are like, just be in here. But it's like that's exactly where it doesn't happen. It's like,
yeah.
Because at the end of the day, all you can really do is sit down at your instrument and play the way you play today. It's like anything else. It's just an attempt to just kind of see the world through somebody else's eyes. Like, it's not even true John Coltrane. It's the guy who decides what the gig is vision of what John Coltrane is, which is also an imagination.
Well, it was like a lot of people who I was invited to a lot of Allan tributes.
Mm-hmm.
And I really couldn't make it, and it's, I know it sounds a little bit morbid to discuss it, but when that guy drew his last breath, that was the closing of a book to me. I mean, that music was done, and I certainly couldn't start even entertaining the idea, even though it was to try to celebrate him in some way. It's I cannot possibly even cannot even consider playing that music with anybody else. It would make no sense whatsoever. It was something that could only happen with him.
Oh yeah.
And I've refused everything, you know, and in a way, I mean, I'm not really trying to sound, you know, holier than thou or righteous
No,
or anything,
you're not.
but the I did a piano um, record of Alan's music, but really portrayed in a new way because I knew that he would enjoy that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he otherwise he'd say, well, what would be the point in doing covers of my music if all you're going to do is like play it the same way I play it? You know,
Mm-hmm.
that was kind of his viewpoint. So I did
Oh,
something. I really did something to showcase his music in a very different way for piano, and I did the same for John's music, incidentally, too, on another record. But um, and only because I considered what is the best way, the most honorable way, most meaningful way to not only them but to me too, to pay tribute, to pay a loving tribute to this man, you know, of high respect and ultimate respect and admiration, really.
that's an
And
actual tribute when it comes through the filter of your being. You
yeah,
just that's a real interpretation because you take the music and you know with the tools and skills you've acquired throughout a life in music, just shoot it
yeah,
out in your way, not just make
yeah.
another
To
16 Men of
pay a
Pain.
tribute, yeah, to pay a tribute to a visionary. What better
Hmm.
way than to be a
Yeah,
visionary again on
come up
already
with a
existing
vision.
music? You know, to really pay a tribute to what they're about.
Hmm.
And I know that Alan loved that. He loved nothing more than to be surprised by something. If he
Hmm.
heard a musician in a club and something, he'd go, oh wow, you know, and it could be a sound thing, or it could be just something in the way they played, or and he'd go, wow, I hadn't really heard anything like that before, and he'd be really taken with something. Wow, that's really inspired me. You know, I need to look for some different stuff too, and this sound thing, I like the way you've got that happening, you know, and that would inspire him. And he loved new ideas in people.
Hmm.
And so that's what he was about. So it's, you know, when some of the people that wrote to me, they were going to try to play material off one of the records, I don't know, but exactly as the record was. And I was going, no, not interested.
Not doing that,
I
right?
mean, we didn't know what it was then. Never mind, like, what is it now? Because if you asked me any questions about it, I wouldn't know what to tell you. Because it was like that because it came out like that, and
Hmm.
he afforded all of us the luxury to be creative and explore the music that way, for it to come together like that, you know.
Yeah, which is
And,
it's not a
and
small feat too, because you get to as an improviser, you're giving freedom to the people who are
mm,
paving the ground you walk in, and you
mm,
guys didn't,
mm,
you know, necessarily make it easy. You know, it's like
no,
and
no.
he
He didn't
wanted
want
it
it easy.
bumpy. Yeah,
He didn't want it easy. He definitely didn't want it easy.
yeah,
He liked the edge.
yeah. That's the
Yeah, he
thing.
liked to walk to the edge. And that's it. See,
Yeah.
I've got every excuse for drinking red wine here because you see, it's
Late.
almost 11 at night. So, and we've been traveling all day. So I'm drinking red wine, ladies and gentlemen.
There
Very
we
nice
go.
Spanish vodka here.
Yeah. Well,
Sorry about
you
that.
earned your red wine. Um,
Yeah.
no, it's really, you know, it's nice to hear, you know, the you're not only sharing the stories but you're sharing the emotion, you know, which is I'm sure it's a bittersweet kind of nostalgic road to go down.
Yeah, I think for all of us, involved.
hmm
Yeah, yeah, sure.
When so 2014 was the last set of gigs you guys played?
That was the last time around for me. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it was also nice because it marked the very first time I got to play with Jimmy Herring,
Yeah.
and this brought about because people say about drummers, once you change the drummer, you change everything. But in a band like that, if you change the bassist, it also changes everything. And and really, Jimmy Haslett came. By the time I got to play with him in the Allen band, and of course him playing with me for the first time, so it was very new for all of us. But it somehow just worked. Um,
hmm
it really required not a lot of effort,
Mm.
but it felt good. I mean, he feels so great to play with. I mean, he's got
Jimmy.
a real, yeah, he's got that real deep drive on bass, that feel. And
hmm
and and I guess, he's got an old school thing about him, which I like. And but his approach to Alan's music was unlike any bass player I ever knew about playing with him. He really came at it in a different way.
hmm
And I
Yeah.
thought that was amazing. So really that I like to think about that tour. I mean, Alan was getting sicker and sicker and not really at his best anymore, which was phenomenally sad for me to be around that. But there were certainly moments, and I remember Reggie's. We
hmm
had a good time. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just having Jimmy part of it, Jimmy as part of it was just like a really new thing. So it wasn't like we'd done quite a few times before. So
hmm Yeah. Change something. Well, Gary, I'm not going to eat up any more of your time. Thank you so very much for taking the time and for everything you share and for everything you brought to us musically and verbally.
very very kind. No, very kind. I'm happy. I'm happy first of, and thank you for your interest in speaking to me. But also, we've been trying to get this together for quite a while now, haven't we, Danny?
Yeah. Yeah. But we got it.
Yeah, I'm never stopping traveling, and you've got your own thing going on, and
Yeah.
we at very short notice today we were able to bring this together. So I'm really happy about that. Thanks, Danny.
Too. Well, thank you so much. We'll be in touch. Bye.